Welcome to the Great Man Within podcast. Every episode is designed to help you discover and live the great man within you. 5 days ago, I said goodbye to a romantic relationship. We weren't together very long, only about 6 or 7 months, and we weren't even exclusive. But our connection was potent. I loved this woman, and this relationship mattered to me. I'm sad and disappointed that it's over, and I'm also hurting over how the last few months played out between us. Over these last 5 days, I've been making space for the feelings to surface, to allow those feelings and emotions to be felt fully. I could tell you, it hasn't been convenient. I've got work to do, priorities, goals to hit, commitments to follow through on. And it certainly hasn't felt great either, creating the space for those emotions of loss, sadness, grief, what ifs, anger, frustration. But I can tell you that it has been healing. And this is a new MO for me post-breakup. My typical MO in the past has been to jump to another woman or to another goal, or to fly to another city, or to indulge in another fantasy. But this time, I'm facing it, allowing the space for it. And it's healing at a deeper level than I've ever experienced post-breakup. Now, John Wineland, who's one of my mentors, who's come on the show and did a podcast called The Art of Masculine Leadership, once said, "How you end things says a lot about you. A lot about you." And I'd always known that on a deep level, but the way he said it burrowed its way into my consciousness. And that came into handy this past weekend. I flew out to Los Angeles, which is where this woman lives, to salvage something that seemed like it was heading towards the inevitable, which was an ending. And we connected on Friday. Things didn't go so well. Saturday morning was our absolute bottom. And it seemed very clear that we had reached a place of irreconcilable differences. She was fed up with me. I was at a loss with her. And we came to the conclusion that the relationship, as beautiful as it had been, had run its course. And there was a part of me on that Saturday morning feeling unfulfilled, unheard, frustrated, all the things, that just wanted to say, fuck it. Let's burn this motherfucker down. It's over. Who gives a shit? Throw my hands up and walk away. Right? That was in there in a big way. And there was that part of me screaming to just make that a reality, But those words from John rang true in my head, in my heart, in my psyche. How you end things says a lot about you. A lot. And so I took a deep breath and I said, well, this does seem like it's over. But how about I take you out tomorrow night, Sunday night, my last night in town, to celebrate where we have been during our time together? Because I think we both want to remember this as a beautiful period of our lives and reflect more on the great memories that we've had, what this relationship brought to us, how it opened us up individually and collectively, and how, for me personally, I felt a sense of love that I hadn't felt in 8 years since my last really meaningful relationship, the one that actually sent me into Sex Addicts Anonymous to face some of my demons. And the fact that I was able to feel this kind of love so much more quickly than I ever had in the past, I'm forever grateful to this woman. And I didn't want to lose sight of that because of the anger and the frustration and the irreconcilable differences of the last few months. I wanted to remember this as a period of time where I grew, my heart opened, that this relationship set me up for the one that I truly believe will be the one that has no end. And I wanted to honor that relationship. And so she said yes. And so that Sunday night, we went out, went to a nice restaurant, overate Mexican food, both got, bloated, and went for this beautiful hike to the top of the Hollywood Hills. And we spent our last few moments together looking out over the sunset, over Hollywood, and hugged. She put her head on my shoulder. I can smell her freshly washed hair and felt her softness once again that I hadn't been able to feel in a while because we'd been battling. My heart started to relax and open. It had been closed for a while. And I had a chance to leave her on a high note. And that's not to say that when I came back this past week, the flight back from Los Angeles, which is a long one, a long day of commuting, the 45-minute, whatever. I don't need to walk through all of it, but it's like 9 hours of commuting. And I sat with the loss, sat with the unanswered questions, sat with the things that hadn't been reconciled yet. And I created the space for that in a way that I never had before in the past. And each and every day since then, in the morning, the first thing I've done is cleared the deck so I could sit with the emotions. I've eaten my own cooking, or I've created that board of directors for my emotions, which is one of the podcasts that I did here, I think about a year ago, right when the pandemic started. It's a popular one that you guys love. I'll link that in the show notes, where I sat down and just quietly asked the parts of me that are hurting what message they have for me. What is the pain that they're feeling? What do you want me to know? And to give it space to express itself. The part of me that's fucking angry. What is that anger about? What value has been trampled upon, or boundary that's been impeded, or maybe some old wound? One of the things that I found, this was remarkable, that came up for me during that process, was the anger that I was feeling was triggered from an old wound from my relationship 8 years ago, because there was a lot of similarities between, let's just say, the confrontational style and how this partner now handles conflict, and then my partner from 8 years ago handled conflict. And I was never able to resolve that 8 years ago. So it felt like it was coming up all over again now. And then I had to release that, relax and release, because they're two different women. My partner now should not, the woman who I just ended a relationship with now, should not be held to task for the sins of the past, and that anger has had a chance to come up and run its course. And like I said, guys, it hasn't been convenient. Like, I've had to move things around, to-dos, push back stuff that is on my work schedule. But I know the value of this, because in the past where I didn't make room for it, this emotion got stuck. It got stored. And then I spent years avoiding those feelings, or numbing them out, or a slave to them, because when that emotion would eventually come up and it would be inconvenient, or I didn't want it, that's when I would turn to sexting or to porn, or I would open up a new loop with another woman who didn't have long-term potential, but there was sexual potential that could distract me from what I was feeling. Or I would run around and chase some goal, or fly to another city. Or you guys see the patterns, and maybe you can see your own patterns and how you distract when you don't make space. And this time I've made the space, and it's felt healing. It's been incredible. One more thing that I've done this time, different MO entirely, was I reached out and turned to the groups of men in my life, seeking strong masculine support through this process, instead of dealing with it all on my own, or turning to the women in my life. And I wrote a post on this that I put in my socials, and I'll just read it to you. I told the 20 men in the Great Man Mastermind about my breakup. I sent these 20 men the details in our group chat. I received 20 messages back. None of these men gave me advice. None of these men had a negative word to say about her. None of these men told me to go fuck another woman to get my mind off her. Instead, all of these men expressed their love and unwavering support. All of these men lent me their attention, their time, and their hearts. All of these men thanked me for entrusting them with something so personal. For most of my life, I exclusively went to women during emotional moments like these. This time, I went to my brothers first, and my tank is full. There's something uniquely empowering about being supported by strong, grounded, and open-hearted men. I love you guys. I got the same kind of support when I posted in the Facebook group for men, the one that I've been encouraging you guys to join. As soon as I posted this, I think within the hour, I had maybe a dozen responses of guys just supporting me, sharing their love, no advice, no animosity towards my ex-partner, right? Just a beautiful strength saying, dude, we got you. Thank you for creating this space where this kind of stuff can be spoken about. Thank you for sharing of yourself, as the leader in the space. And seeing, what I'm going through is very helpful for the other guys who sometimes think I have all my shit together. And I don't. And to feel how enveloped I am in the love of all of these powerful groups of men, this Facebook group, the mastermind, the digital mastermind, my Monday night men's group, like all of these men have just stepped up. It's like I've got an army of fucking warriors who are so powerful and strong and heart opened, standing here at the ready to have my back. And I can't tell you guys how empowering that feels. It allows me to go to some of these scarier places, rawer places, to open up and face it because I don't have to face it on my own. My coach David, who's been here throughout the entirety of that process every Tuesday night, helping me break this shit down. I think about the men in our men's, Brian's been there for me. I think about Mark Krasner, who sat with me for an hour and broke this stuff down. I mean, just over and over again. Keith Bracci. I mean, guys, I'm going to be leaving people out, but I never relied on the men in my life, ever, to navigate through stuff like this. I'd always lone wolfed it. And one of the experiences of these last 5 days, 5 days is not a very long time to process a breakup. I've been shocked at how open and light my heart feels. Shocked. These places that, mornings and evenings where I've really allowed this processing to occur have been so cathartic that during the day, I haven't needed work as a distraction. It just feels like the next logical thing. Like in the morning when I've done this work, I'm complete. I don't need work to distract me. In fact, work feels aligned and spacious, and I'm creating. I even feel the power of this podcast as I'm speaking it. I know there's when I'm recording sometimes I'm like, this podcast is, who knows? I never put out anything that I feel like is shit, ever. But there's some podcasts where I'm like, I don't know how you guys are going to feel about it. This one, I know is going to land. It's real. I know I'm going to hear from you guys about this. I want you to reach out to me about this. I want you to share your stories about how this is touching you in an area that's resonant. I know that. And so at night, when the day is done, I go back in, I check and see, is there anything else that needs processing? And I've been shocked at how fast this thing is cycling through. And it's because I'm leveraging all the tools that I've spoken about ad nauseum on this show with Brian for the past 2+ years. Creating the space, feeling the feelings, sitting with them, getting curious, leveraging the men in our groups, don't lone wolf it. And here's the thing that I feel really starting to sprout from deep within me. This is the last fucking relationship that ends this way. For 42 years, I've been able to script out the ending to every relationship I've been in. I've known on some level when I've entered a relationship how the story was going to go. And I'm ready for a new story. You're going to hear that from Brian in one of the upcoming podcasts that we have, because Brian's got he's got some news to share with you. But the relationship that he's in with his partner, he felt differently in that relationship. He's like, I don't know how this one ends. I'm done entering relationships where I know how the story ends. I'm ready for my fucking queen, guys. And I'm clearing the space right now. And so I think about how this relationship ended. And I'm proud about how I showed up for it. Because there was plenty of times where I wanted to disengage and ignore the hard conversations. I found that my endurance, emotional endurance, my emotional stamina to sit in when that big red fucking eject button was screaming my name. And I hung in. Why was I able to do that? Practicing all this stuff. Breathwork, meditation, emotional fluency. I stuck in there. And then the moments where I wanted to say fuck it, or I wanted to scream, or I wanted to let my emotions say that thing that would have felt so good in the moment, but would have destroyed trust or not been true about how I felt about her or what I would have wanted to be in our relationship space, emotional space. And instead, finishing it with integrity, closing it off in a way where I know that my head can hang high. And even how I'm speaking about her in this episode right now. Hopefully, you guys have been able to feel that there's no resentment that I carry towards her. I'm not disparaging anything about her, right? Because that's not how I feel. I love this woman. There will always be a special place in my heart for her. And of course, there's some residue I need to work through, but that's my shit. And like I said, she's got plenty of stuff on her end that she's probably had more than her fill of me on. And that's the way love goes sometimes. So there was a time in my life that I can look back on and not be proud of how I ended things. And as I am walking the path of aligning with that great man inside of me, and I see the way that he ends things. I connect with my great man every day, every morning in meditation. He and I are one and the same, but different. He's the man who's already gone through all of this and has come out the other side with the battle scars, with the lessons, and with the wisdom. And I aspire to show up as him every waking moment of the day. And I got a long ways to go, but his example, his model is helping me to go through situations like this. What would my great man do? I constantly go back to him. And the more that I bring him into my awareness, the more I'm able to be proud of how I show up in situations like these. Man, I wanted to thank you for taking the time and for opening your minds and your hearts to listening to this episode. You've been helpful for me in being here, knowing that you're on the other end listening to this. Trust me, you have done me a service. And if this touched you on some level, I'd love to hear from you. Whether it's coming into the Facebook group and sharing your story, sending me an email, following or sending me a DM on Instagram. I'll link that in the show notes as well. And if there's someone in your life who needs to hear this episode right now, please send it to them. You'll be doing them a service too. Because the way that we end things says a lot about us. And if we are creating a community of great men and we create better endings, for the business relationships in our lives, for the romantic relationships in our lives, then I think we all heal. We all become stronger. We all become more loving, and we all feel more supported. So thank you.